my name's Daisy Eris Campbell, and I guess I'm sort of here representing psychedelic, psychomagical theatre. I'm here because the wonderful Hattie Wells, we've sort of recently prodigally returned into each other's lives, and she phoned me up. She said, we fancy a bit of theatre at Breaking Convention. You do theatre, don't you? I said, yeah, no, I do, yeah. She said you could do some improv and sketches or something. I said, that's not really the kind of theatre that I do. She said, oh, what do you do? I said, well, that's kind of what I would talk about, I guess. But the thing I'm sort of working on at the moment, I guess you'd call it confessional. I said, listen, I'd love to come and tell my strange tale to your people. I think they'd get a real kick out of it. She said, does it involve psychedelics? I said, it does, yeah, but I sort of tend to play that aspect down. She said, well, you can play that aspect up, so that's good. And she said, how long does it take then to tell this strange tale of yours? I said, well, I mean, if I tell the full epic, it's a good hour and 40 minutes. She said, Christ, no. Can you get it down to 45 for us? So, I'm so honoured to be invited to speak at this place. I said, yeah, of course I can, Hattie, but it means I've got to refer to my iPad, I'm afraid, because I'm a bit prone to digression. Oh, there she is. Isn't she brilliant? Absolutely fantastic. Story, that's what I'm interested in. Story fascinates me. It kind of runs in me deep. I guess it runs in all of us pretty deep, but it seems to kind of take hold of me in strange ways, as you will discover. And so I've had to kind of look into it. Story, its workings and whatnot. And so I know, for example, that if you're building a story from scratch, until you have desire, you have nothing. And I also know that really what story is it's a value exploration device, right? I mean, the value of a story is in how well it helps us to explore our values. So the way you do this in story is you put your characters under pressure to make choices. And by those choices, they're going to now reveal their deepest values, yeah? We're going to find out who they really are when push comes to shove. And I also know that if you want to tell a truly great story, you've got to take it to what's known as the end of the line, i.e. whatever value you're exploring, you've got to take it to the point beyond which you can imagine no further. My honest experience with psychedelics? Honestly? I discovered psychedelics in all their glorious multifarity at the age of 18. What a great adventure for a little while. And then by the age of 23, they had brought me completely to my knees. I mean, how did these foods of the gods exact such a precision takedown via love and love's trusty sidekick, suffering? Unrequited love, my particular speciality, both unrequitor and unrequitee. And, I mean, for example, I was hopelessly in love with this guy for like over 2 years, and, he didn't know, and he was in love with somebody else, and she was in love with him, and at that time I lived in this big shared house, and so did they. I mean, how did I survive that particular agony? Psychedelics. I lived out my days in lysergic, crystalline palaces of sweet yearning and deep down K-holes of cosmic telepathic communion. And then one day, so high I could barely see, I sat down opposite him and I fessed up everything that I'd been in love with him for years just to make it stop. I presented him with what I thought was a value-revealing choice under pressure, but which I'm sure to him was no choice at all. And I was asked to leave the shared house. And listen, it was fair enough, because by that time I had become so twisted, so jealous, so fucked up. And it wasn't just the psychedelics, it was the alcohol, it was the rest of it. And I'd just become a liability. I'd become a liability to myself, I'd become a liability to those around me. And I'm ashamed to say I'd become a liability to my 4-year-old daughter. So, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I'd taken my psychedelic exploration story to the end of the line. Now, listen, perhaps if there'd been more understanding back then of addiction in the whole psychedelic scene, maybe I could have stuck around somehow. But as it was, I jumped into the only story that I could find that was prepared to accept someone who was on their hands and knees. You might be familiar with it. It follows a 12-step structure. So I gave up all the psychedelics. I gave up all mood and mind-altering substances of any kind. And I didn't just give up the drink and the drugs. I also gave up my desire for a wild story full of chemical romance and psychedelic world-shifting capers. And I replaced it all with a simple bargain with God. God, I will not touch that first drink or that first drug if you will help me to raise my daughter day at a time and help me to put right all the shit that I fucked up. And so that's why you guys haven't seen me around. I've been sitting in these rooms of heart-centered people talking about spirituality and God and healing. Actually, very like you guys here. It's just that I've been with the ones who couldn't walk this particular path without their stories spiraling out of their control. And I'm not moralizing, believe me. I'm merely presenting you with what my value-revealing choice under pressure was. And maybe thanks to this God that I'd found, I didn't have to travel this lonely child-rearing path alone, because arrived just then my unicorn, the man with whom I was to spend 18 years of family bliss. And we didn't just child rear, we did for a decade or so, but I did manage a psychedelic caper or two without the drugs. For example, I adapted and directed Robert Anton Wilson's Cosmic Trigger for the stage in 2014 and 2017. I got involved with the Justified Ancients of Moo Moo, formerly the KLF, the band who burned £1 million, to build a pyramid of dead people in Toxteth. So, so something had clearly imprinted pretty deep. But yeah, not a single mood or mind-altering substance passed my lips for 17 years, until April 23rd, 2019, the day we immanentized the eschaton. Incidentally, it was while I was working with... Could someone do me a favour and get me a glass of water? I've got a horribly dry mouth. That'd be great. Thank you. It was while I was working with Bill Drummond and Jimmy Corti of the KLF that I was given my most treasured mantra, because I said to Bill one day, why are we something? He said, Dizzy, why? Why? If we knew why, we wouldn't be doing it. Okay. So, yes, I will attempt to tell you my strange tale in the next 36 minutes. So you're going to have to, keep up. and such a, thank you so much, such a fuller self-confession needs a quick disclaimer, I feel. So, dear seeker, you could pull at any of the threads that I mention in this here tale, and you will find an entire rabbit hole, that much I promise you. You could pull on any of the threads of any of the individuals that I mention in this tale, and you will find a whole other epic of heartbreak and hubris, art and magic. So please, just consider my story one thread in the psychomagical mycelium network, just one person's choice and desire. In addition, putting oneself in these kind of psychomagical, theatrical pickles does have an undeniable effect on one's dear old ego. It sort of bears the terrible strain of being 1 minute a god and 1 minute an utter fool. So please, dear seeker, help me land with grace. Forgive me the bondage of self. Forgive that who you see here tonight is not by a very long shot who I am all the time. Be relieved about that as well. And remember that these things and more shall you know. Above all, don't worry, it's theatre. It's not religion, it's art. This talk could also be entitled, How to Make an Egregore in 23 Easy Steps. When I am asked, how is it that you came to lead a pilgrimage to the centre of nothing? Or when I am asked, how is it that the ritual you did at the centre of nothing resulted in the conception of an orphan god? Or when I am asked, why is it that you threw away your happy family life to go and explore the mysteries of love's suffering? I usually take a deep breath and say, Carl Jung had a dream about Liverpool. And he wrote about it in his book Memories, Dreams and Reflections on page 223. In this dream, he saw the convergence of a number of cobbled streets in a rainy city. He knew it was Liverpool, and he knew that Liverpool in this dream was the pool of life. And he comes across in the dream a magnolia tree in an island at this converging point. So now cut forward, a good couple of decades, and this Scouse poet, name of Peter Halligan, prophet of this church, he was reading Memories, Dreams and Reflections, and he comes to page 223, and he decides that he's going to find the actual site of Carl Jung's dream of Liverpool, even though, Carl Jung had never been to Liverpool. So anyway, this whole poetic quest lasted a number of years, involving dowsing rods and various synchronicities, and he found it. It was just up the way from the Cavern Club where the Beatles had first performed. And so there was no magnolia tree, no island. Instead, there was a manhole cover. This manhole cover was to become the stuff of legend. For example, the aforementioned Bill Drummond, another prophet of this church, he was 17 years later to stand on this manhole cover for 17 hours on his 60th birthday in the rain. Anyway, on that fateful day that Brother Halligan found the site of Carl Jung's dream of Liverpool, he noticed that the building on the corner of two of the streets was derelict, and so he claimed it. And he called it the Liverpool School of Language, Music, Dream and Pun. And there was a cafe and an antiques thing and whatnot, but the first production to go on there was Illuminatus. This was to be directed by my father, Ken Campbell, an epic 18-hour psychedelic thing. Oh, look, and here's my mum. So she was playing Eris, goddess of chaos and confusion. And when she reveals her true goddess nature, she sat on a forklift truck, the whole thing designed by Bill Drummond, again, at that time disguised as a set designer. And up she goes into the eaves of the building. But what she didn't know, what my dad didn't know, is that I was, in fact, already part of this story. Because, yes, I was conceived on the site of Carl Jung's dream of Liverpool. I mean, to be honest, I never stood a fucking chance. So that's why Eris really is my middle name. Before you have desire, you have nothing. The opening line, incidentally, of this extraordinary book, Illuminatus, which really is quite a piece, Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea, this is by. The opening line, it was April 23rd, the year when they finally immanentized the eschaton. CERN. It's the largest and most expensive experiment ever carried out by us humans, isn't it? I mean, most people know about CERN these days. There's like a 27-kilometre tube of nothing under the ground. It's so big, half of it's in France and half of it's... And they waz particles together and try and find God or something, is it? Anyway, whatever. But that's not what I was interested in. That's not what I was interested in. What I was interested in was the nothing in the tube. You know, there is more nothing in CERN than anywhere else in the known universe. And by nothing, I don't mean not awfully much, really. Not vacuum. There's loads of crap in vacuums. Not space. Space is teeming with stuff compared to what they haven't got in CERN. So it is nigh on what they have in CERN, the nothing that doesn't exist. Now listen, why was nothing of such interest to me? No time to go into all that. If you want to understand the full extent of my fascination with nothing, you better read my play, Pigspurt's Daughter, available at the bookstore. But this quote here from Immediatism by Hakim Bey, this kind of gets a little way. Hakim Bey, I mean, I think this is a vital work for any artist working today. Immediatism here referring to the art that is immediate, but also the art that is as unmediated as possible, as immediate, but also the art that you do for your immediate people, your immediate tribe, to strengthen those mycelic threads, you see. Hakim Bey, man, you know, his words have guided me so long. He died, didn't he, not long ago, just a few weeks ago. Don't Google him. This is the opening line of the opening paragraph of Immediatism. Ontological anarchy in a nutshell. Since absolutely nothing can be predicated with any real certainty as to the true nature of things, all projects, as Nietzsche says, can only be founded on nothing. And yet there must be a project, if only because we ourselves resist being categorized as nothing. Out of nothing we will make something. The uprising, the revolt against everything which proclaims the nature of things is such and such. We disagree. We are unnatural. We are less than nothing in the eyes of the law. Divine law, natural law, social law, take your pick. Out of nothing, we will imagine our values, and by this act of invention, we shall live. Fuck, I've got it. I've got it. I've got the desire for a truly great story. Do you get it? Before you have desire, you have nothing. So I will journey to the center of nothing, CERN, and there I will discover the new values, and by this act of invention, I shall live. In other words, like the opening line of Illuminatus, it was finally time to immanentize the eschaton. Funny phrase, that, isn't it? It's a sort of ancient Gnostic notion. It means to bring about heaven on earth now, or to bring closer the end of the actual world. I reckoned it was worth the risk. It depends on how you spell it. Anyway, it turns out, extraordinarily, that I was not, by a very long shot, the only person who thought that this was a mighty fine idea. And so, in April 2019, just a few months before the great story twist of our time, I took a busload of pilgrims, and when I say a busload, I mean a double-decker busload, 69 pilgrims in total, on a pilgrimage to the mathematical centre of CERN, the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. So one person who'd absolutely promised he was going to be on the bus was the author John Higgs. But then I got a phone call, and he said, can we meet in our favourite cafe in Brighton? And, he said, no, listen, I am going to be in CERN on April 23rd to immanentize the eschaton. It's just that I'm going to be in the CERN in Dorset. I said, there's a CERN in Dorset? He said, yeah, CERN Abbas, the CERN giant, the chalk bloke with the enormous cock. I said, oh, very wily, John. This is very wily. You're coming up with this amusing pun to get out of coming. But then we realised that if we all started at the CERN giant, the whole pilgrimage, then it could be CERN to CERN, the large hard-on to the large hadron, you see. So clearly it had to be done. But I didn't like the narrative structure very much. I thought it was a bit weak. I said, listen, John, I can't tell everyone they've got to get their way to fucking Dorset before we can set off because you've come up with a flimsy pun to get out of coming. So I said, we'll upgrade it, John. We'll upgrade it to a vision. We'll say John Higgs has had a vision But what would really clinch it is if I can get my mate Kate Alderton to dream it. Now, the thing about Kate Alderton is she's this extraordinary sort of prophetic dreamer. Oh, you're a star, thank you. I can't tell you how many capers we've had to do because Kate Alderton has had a dream. Anyway, so I phoned Kate up. I said, Kate, listen, I'm commissioning you to have a dream. She said, righto, what's the dream to be about? I said, no, I can't tell you that. She said, right, so what, I just tell you all the dreams I have and you'll tell me if it's the one you commissioned? I said, yeah, that's right, yeah. Anyway, she popped into the dream world. Only 3 days it took her before I got a phone call. She said, I've had a dream. Me and you and John Higgs are all in a cafe. I said, fuck, Kate, you're good, you know. She said, and we're all looking at an ancient coin, and John looks a bit red in the face. I said, oh, it's good. It's very good. I could do with something a bit better. Pop back in, see if you can get anything else. And in fact, it turned out that night she had also dreamed of an enormous cock. She just hadn't thought it was relevant. She could have been off the hook weeks before. But anyway, so it took her about 3 more weeks now. And then I get another call from Kate, and she says, yeah, I've had another dream. This one is about the pilgrims. I said, this is good. She said, yeah, we're all arguing about where we should begin the pilgrimage. I said, Kate, yes. And she said, and I keep saying that it should begin at the Long Man of Wilmington. Shit a prick. No? No chalk man aficionados in tonight. The Long Man of Wilmington is the only other chalk man in the UK. I mean, there's some horses and canaries and whatnot, but that's the only other chalk man. So she got it wrong, and maybe everything would have gone so differently if we'd actually started at the Long Man of Wilmington, but no. I decided that John Higgs had had a vision, Kate Alderton had dreamed it. It's his writ. CERN to CERN, the large hard-on to the large hadron, and I got underway with organising this fantastic caper. We only know one thing at this point, us 69 intrepid pilgrims. If we knew why, we wouldn't be doing it. First call goes out to Josh Ray of the Liverpool Arts Lab, a ground roots arts organisation. Would the Liverpool Arts Lab like to join me in organising a pilgrimage to Switzerland? Get this, they're already organising a pilgrimage to Switzerland for the very same year because it's the 50th anniversary since Carl Jung's dream of Liverpool. So they want to go to Bollingen, to the place where he actually had the dream of Liverpool, to kind of connect this up. And, that's the place where he sort of built that whole thing, wasn't it? And did the alchemical stone. He carved it over 20 years, whatnot. I said, shit, can we combine pilgrimages? They called a meeting, a vote was taken. Yes, I got the call. Liverpool Arts Lab are in. So now it's CERN to Lake Lucerne. But then I get another phone call from Kate, the dreamer. She's had another dream about the pilgrimage. I said, oh, Christ, yes, Kate, what is it? She said, this one was set in Damanhur. Now, this is a place that I have actually visited a few times. Kate had never been there. Damanhur, have you heard of it? Has anyone heard of it? I mean, listen, if a load of artists had actually built the 8th wonder of the world, there'd be some kind of news bulletin to let the people know. But no, apparently not. No, man, Damanhur. It's this thriving community. Oh, shit, I've lost my thing. It's this thriving community of artists and mystics. There's time travelers. But listen, as if that wasn't achievement enough, just keeping this thing going. They've been going for over 40 years. They've got over 800 residents, but loads more people who come and go. And they've honestly had a rethink about every single aspect of living. They're the most successful community that I've certainly ever come across. And they have, as well as that, they have carved into the side of a mountain a temple, but really more like a network of temples, I mean, how do you convey awe? Well, you can see it behind me, the largest stained glass cupolas in the world, mosaics and relief work, depicting Damanhurian mythology, human mythology, mosaic floors where a button is pressed and it turns into a flight of stairs going down to the next level. I mean, as you make your way through this incredible journey, this underground labyrinth, your only fear is that it might come to an end too soon. But it doesn't. On and on and on it goes, and it would take lifetimes to see every detail. I urge you, particularly you guys, you must go and see it. So Kate, she's on the phone and she's telling me she's had this dream that the pilgrims are in Damanhur. And she said, we are doing what I can only describe as an ancient dance language. I said, Kate, shit, I mean, do you know that Damanhur do actually have an ancient dance language? They call it their sacred dance. She didn't know that. I said, we weren't learning a specific phrase, were we? She said, yeah, we were. We were learning to dance the phrase, show us so we can understand. And she said she woke from that dream absolutely certain that that's what we should be doing when we got to the mathematical centre of CERN. I said, all right, Kate. All right, I'll see what I can do. Anyway, I hadn't been in touch with Damanhur since I was a kid when my dad took me there. So I phoned the wonderful Hesperide and from Damanhur, and I said, I'm bringing a double-decker busload of Discordians, psychonauts, Gnostics, money burners, and other chaos magicians from CERN to CERN, and if we knew why, we wouldn't be doing it. And my mate Kate has had a dream that we must come to Damanhur and learn your sacred dance, specifically the phrase, show us so we can understand, so that we can dance it when we get to the mathematical centre of CERN in order to immanentize the eschaton. Would it be possible to come and visit for a couple of days? And then I got really paranoid that I was asking a bit too much. So I said, and in return, we will put on the Pilgrim's Opera with dance and puppetry and whatnot, and it will explain the whole reason that we find ourselves in Damanhur. She said, not many people here speak English. I said, that's fine. We'll do it in Italian. So, anyway, wonderfully, Hesperide, she managed to get this double-decker bus up the mountain. She arranged for us to camp on their football field. She sorted out for us to visit the eighth wonder of the world, and she booked a teacher of the sacred dance so that we could learn the phrase, show us so we can understand. Alan Moore says that art and magic are the same thing. But he also says there's high art and high magic. And that is when you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You just proceed as if everything is a message from the universe. And I knew we were now into the territory of high magic. I would say a conservative estimate of the amount of emails that were flying back and forth long before we ever got on the bus would be around 6,000. I mean, we were crashing servers daily because we weren't just traveling from CERN to Damanhur to CERN to Lake Lucerne. Oh no. We were also making the Pilgrim's Tarot, a deck of tarot cards to which each pilgrim gave a card and gave themselves their pilgrim name. We had the 30-strong bus band with songs to be learnt. We had the Pilgrim's Guidebook with articles, poems, think pieces. We were going to be broadcasting pilgrim radio 23 hours a day for the entire duration. And of course, we now had the Pilgrim's Opera to stage at Damanhur in Italian. So everyone was put into email chains kind of based on their preferences. I was in every single one. And I tried not to intervene as much as possible, but man, it was something, watching this thing come alive. And occasionally a sort of question would pop out of the email groups like, what's the budget for sperm hats? There's no budget for anything. It was around this time, incidentally, that it was decreed that false teeth must be worn for all ritual elements, lest we forget the cosmic joke. But of these 6,000 emails, I would say that 2,500 of them pertained to the question of what it was we were going to do when we got to the mathematical centre of CERN. I'm talking above ground here, yeah? Imagine the circle of nothing, like a great big kind of magical circle. I did try and arrange a visit to the underground. I think they're a bit wary of Gnostic heretical capers. I think they've been stung in the past. Anyway, and we knew that we couldn't lock down exactly what we were going to do when we got to the centre of CERN. That wouldn't be in the spirit of high magic at all. That wouldn't be in the spirit of if we knew why, we wouldn't be doing it. So all we could humbly was to look for clues. And so that's what these 2,500 emails were. They were looking for clues. We were tracking the dreams, the synchronicities, the symbols and portents by the hour for months. One big clue came for me in the form of this book here. Where is it? Time Loops by Eric Wargo, in which he argues that more or less all paranormal activity can be explained if we can just accept one fact, that we can sometimes remember the future. So when I wrote the next big email out to all the pilgrims, I reminded them, if we knew why we wouldn't be doing it, blah, blah, blah. But also, this has all happened already. So all we have to do is remember what it was we did and do that. And if someone thinks up something they'd like to happen and it doesn't occur, it's just we misremembered. Caper organisers, if you want to do some kind of similar caper to this, remember these two. If we knew why, we wouldn't be doing it, and this has all happened already. It gets you out of all manner of fuckeries. And it means you can focus on your actual job, which is, of course, to hold your nerve. I got another clue in about a week before we left. This big box arrived. And this bloke that I'd barely met, him and his wife, had taken it upon themselves to make an exact replica of the dress my mother had worn, that 23-foot-long dress, when she was Eris back in that Illuminatus production. I thought, this is significant. I'm bringing this along on the bus. And so, look, I'm going to cut forward now. And it's the first day of the pilgrimages upon us, Bicycle Day 2019. And we gather up at the CERN giant, got our false teeth in proudly. Some wave-off wizards have come to do a blessing on behalf of the giant. The dancing gardener, pilgrim name, he performs a bizarre dance at the tip of the giant's penis. We keep the other Discordians off his knob, out of respect. And we all stand around singing joyfully in our sperm hats. Yes, I relented and coughed up. Yeah, there we are. But look, I'm gonna cut. Is my mic all right? It feels a bit scrunchy. It's all right. It's all right. I'm gonna cut forward. So it's now April 23rd, and we're driving through the Mont Blanc tunnel, and we're on our way to the mathematical centre of CERN. And it's been decided what it is we're going to do with this dress. We're going to strip the skirt into 23 shards, and each pilgrim will draw a sigil, a symbol of their intention, three sigils to each strip. And it's decided that I should be in the centre of the dress, since I've already been in it as a fetus, and other reasons. And anyway, at this point, we've already been to Damanhur. We've learned the sacred dance, show us so we can understand. We've done the Pilgrim's Opera in Italian, which turned out to be a farce. And we'd seen the temples, and everyone had agreed that they are indeed the eighth wonder of the world. And listen, we discovered this. The Damanhurians, you see, they were very interested to meet Kate the Dreamer, because the Damanhurians take dreaming very seriously. And what they have been doing most recently is they have been sending messages via the dreams to all the shamans, mystics, psychonauts, and dreamers the world over, telling them to come to Damanhur. So it wasn't Kate who dreamed of Damanhur at all. It was Damanhur who dreamed of us. Anyway, we're in the Mont Blanc tunnel, right, and we strip the dress, and everyone is putting their sigils onto the thing. There's great solemnity and purpose. And here they are. And the coach, it pulls up as close as it can to the mathematical centre of CERN. We're a good half mile away. We're in a race against time. We've got to be at the centre at 2:23 precisely to immanentize the eschaton. And it's at this moment that the boatman, pilgrim name, offers me my first dose of acid in 17 years. I make a value-revealing choice. In fact, it's a choice that I've been pondering for the best part of a decade. The sacred dancers go ahead to begin practicing, and we also have 8 pilgrims doing the OA dance, just in case. Now, the dress is untangled, and I begin to walk. There's one pilgrim holding each of the shards behind me, and I suddenly become aware how bridal the whole thing is. I hadn't really thought about that. In fact, what a fertility rite, going from the ancient cock to the great modern nothing. And we enter the Swiss countryside. It's beautiful, the walk to the mathematical centre of CERN through these pine forests, and we reach a glade, and there the pilgrims are practicing, show us so we can understand. And there's a little bridge up ahead to cross a stream. And so we're just readying ourselves to cross the stream. And then the 4 horse women of the apocalypse ride up towards us. And this is the moment that it hits me. We have done this before, many, many times. In fact, this is like the boss level in a video game. It's that point you just can't get past. And so we've all just got to the point where we're just amusing ourselves. You know, someone's added the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse a few rounds previously, and then some feminist wagger said, can't it be the 4 horse women of the apocalypse next time, for fuck's sake? And we're just tweaking it, and I realize synchronicity is rewrites. Anyway, the 4 horse women, they pause, they look at us grinning in our false teeth, and they ride the other way. We fall into complete silence now as we cross the stream. There's just the sound of the drum beating like a heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. And it becomes apparent that someone has got here before us. Or was it us? There is a smiley face graffitied onto the ground incongruously. There is a fire still smouldering to one side of the path. And out ahead, we've got the Welsh dragon in full costume with his dowsing rods, and someone else holding the coordinates on a phone, just in case. And then we get there to the coordinates, and 3 tarot cards mark the spot. The Fool, the Tower, and the Sun. Fuck. And I stand on these tarot cards, and the shards spread out, and they begin to turn. Oh, go on, play. And I do my best to channel 3,000 emails of symbolic meaning and importance as they turn around me. Fucking hell. As I come up. When we are done, we walk away without looking back. Someone stays behind to plant a magnolia tree at the centre. And that night, we stay on a Swiss family campsite. We have to kind of straighten ourselves up in a bit of a hurry. And it's gorgeous, this place. It's under the mountains by a lake. It's insanely beautiful. I think I will treat myself to a cabin tonight because tent pegs are complicated. But I can't find it. There's hundreds of these things, and I'm wandering around alone. It's the day we finally immanentized the eschaton. We did a show for the gods. That'll surely get their attention. But I've lost everyone, and I can't find my cabin. And I suddenly get the fear. Hubris. And everything suddenly feels terribly, terribly wrong. But then appears at that moment The Moment Maker, pilgrim name. He just, there he is. I love this man. He's an outrageous mank philosopher, rock star, polite as fuck t-shirt, jaunty spliff. We've been friends for years, ever since he followed a treasure hunt of 23s through the streets of Liverpool that ended in me, even though I didn't lay the hunt. And he's even higher than I am, man. And I say, I've lost my cabin. I've lost my cabin. And he says, oh, it's hundreds of cabins. And then he just tries the first door, and it's my one. And we sit down on the bed. And suddenly, he's fessing up everything. That he's been in love with me for years. And he just has to tell me just to make it stop. Of all the immanentizations, of all the eschatons in all the world, he walks into mine. And I know so well his suffering, and I feel so completely his love, and my whole body is dissolving. My first psychedelic experience in 17 years. A value-revealing choice indeed. But there's no time to make it that night because it's the last day of the pilgrimage, and today is Jung Day. This day belongs to the Liverpool Arts Lab, and man, it's a good one. So we've got to go to Lake Lucerne, to Bollingen. First order of business is getting the coach onto a ferry. Go on, there it is. We all jump off the ferry, do the sacred dance at the front, of course. Anyway, and of course, the Scousers make us sing Ferry Cross the Mersey, because of course they do, the Scousers. And then as we come on to the banks of the other side of this insanely beautiful Swiss countryside, look at it, it turns out that we are now going to be treated to a tour of Liverpool. And one of the Scousers is actually a real Liverpool tour guide, so the whole thing's hilariously real. So it's all, little cows are being pointed out as the Liver building and this, that. And what they're doing is they're touring us to the manhole cover, which of course will instead be Jung's carved stone. And we gather round there. And there's a lovely ritual the Arts Lab do. And then at this moment, the Omphalos steps forward. And he is going to deliver the prophecy of Merlin, this rousing epic poem. And suddenly, as he's speaking, the wind whips up. I mean, it had been a completely still day. And it's like it's so strong, we can only just catch his words on the wind. The bulrushes have all flattened down on the side of the lake. And then I can just remember the last few words. He says, root and branch will change place, and the newness of the thing will seem a miracle. And then a high-speed train just goes across the horizon as if to underline his words, and the wind drops back down, and we all look at each other, and we know that we have done whatever it was we came to do. So then just remains the final overnight bus ride home, the ferry, and we dance the sacred dance one last time in Portsmouth Ferry car park. Yeah. And then the Moment Maker, he comes up to me and he says, so a bunch of the Scousers are going to commune at Avebury at the Stones. Do you want to come? And there, I think we're going to need to just leave us frozen in indecision in Portsmouth car park. I'm sorry, there's just no time to tell you the magical results of this hypersigil. There's no time to say how we discovered that every act of magic done right results in the conception of a magical child, but that it's not the conception, but the gestation which will ask of the magicians involved everything they have. And it's no time, I'm afraid, to say that we did in fact conceive on April 23rd, 2019, collectively, all 69 of us, after how many lifetimes of trying, we know not. And there's no time, I'm afraid, to say how we discovered that this gestating entity should be known as the magical orphan. No time to say that the collective dreams revealed the conception, but also that they revealed that the child was definitely going to die, confirmed by a tarot reading from Alan Moore, no less, a straight run of the major arcana in order, except it ended not with strength, but with strife. No time to say why it was we chose to ignore those messages and keep the child alive at all costs, which meant that two dragons had to stay in love despite the two-dragon problem. You have a dragon behind your back. No, I don't. You have a dragon behind your back. No time to tell of my great chemical romance, of gaping psychic sores, of love's origins in chaos, of the sex magic sigils we couldn't undo. No time to say how love brings our keenest vulnerabilities to the surface, how that may even be its purpose. No time to tell you how many times I lost my mind and gave up all hope of its return. No time to say how often I found my heart instead. No time to tell you how we knew that the gestation period for a magical orphan is a year and a day. But because of a leap year, that meant its birthday was still April 23rd. And how we knew that they must be born in Snowdonia, on the very same mountain where Merlin himself spoke his original prophecy. Or how we learned that the Jung's carved stone around which we all felt the forces swirl is called the orphan stone. Or that Jung had intended to carve on the last remaining side the prophecy of Merlin, but never did. No time to tell how grand a birth we planned for this magical child, but how a plague then stalked the land, and how Snowdonia was broadcast to the nation as an example of a place absolutely not to go to, and how the plastic fetus that Kate Alderton the dreamer told me to purchase to keep the dream child alive came from China, and how the mountain of its birth was the place where a plague had been ended in ancient times by the capture of two dragons. No time to say that another word for a magical child is an egregore. That egregores are independently alive thought forms conjured into existence by groups of magicians, but that ours was an accident, a love child. And that maybe we don't need a new story at all. We just need new egregores, conjured into existence by groups of the best of us, and then maybe they can teach us their values. And there's no time to say that our egregore was indeed born on the mountain on April 23rd, 2020, the peak of the first lockdown, with the Omphalos and Mambo, its midwives, but with every other pilgrim tuned in via the etheric mycelium network, and that we know it survived the night because of the collective dreams, and that 33 pilgrims stepped up to become official orphan keepers, and how the orphan's material form is now a wooden child, carved from a dead branch of a barren oak that stands upon the mountain of its birth, and how on the 23rd of every month, the orphan is passed from keeper to keeper, and in its heart, a gift for the next in the chain. And what a journey it's been, and how much we've loved, and how much we've suffered. There's no time to say why it is I think the future will fruit from the psychomagical underground if these mycelium elders will learn to stop worrying about the mushrooms we make in the world above, and instead just focus on the health of the soil. No time to tell the tale of myself, the authenticator, the omphalos and the pillock, and how we sat all night vigil on the mountain on the orphan's first birthday, and how the authenticator, real name Claudia Bolton, prophet of this church, then crossed the great veil, leaving grace. This telling is dedicated to her. So yeah, I guess you could say that my return to psychedelics has been fruitful. Have I reached the end of the line? No doubt. I just don't know what line. Please, help me land with grace. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed your time.